the most watched team
Yeah.
in the Big 12 this year. Colorado narrowly, by percentage points, misses out on a trip to Arlington in the Big 12 championship, but still exceeded a lot of expectations, still planning on playing a lot of guys in the bowl game. Like Coach Prime said, could very well get to a 10-win season at this point still, which would be one of the best in Colorado's recent history. You want to take just a quick 30 seconds to reflect on Colorado's 2024 season, and then I know Colorado fans are already wanting to talk about next year.
Absolutely awesome. I mean, this is a Colorado fan base. I don't mean to use other Big 12 teams to compare, but I will here. BYU fans are completely, I don't want to say disappointed, but a little underwhelmed. They're completely underwhelmed by not going to the Big 12 championship. However, the rhetoric out of Colorado, out of Deion Sanders, out of the fan base is, yes, Colorado football is back. The country is watching. Even though they missed out on millions of dollars and plenty of exposure from the Big 12 championship and a possible playoff spot, that doesn't matter right now because Colorado is back on the football map. And for BYU, they've been up and down in college football the last 15 years. Colorado has not. They've only been down. They've had 2 winning seasons the last 16 years, TJ. And so for them to be here at 9-3 with a Heisman Trophy winner on their roster, that is more than huge for Boulder and that program. I think Colorado fans are wearing the brand proudly today, even though they're not in the Big 12 championship.
Now, again, they exceeded so many expectations, and again, we're razor thin close to being there if they pull out a win in either of their Big 12 games.
Yeah.
Colorado's, today is signing day that we're recording this on. Obviously, Julian Lewis at this point has signed. They've flipped some other guys. They've signed some other guys that I'm sure Coach Prime has a surprise or two up his sleeve. We're recording this kind of early in the day, so don't yell at us if we didn't mention your favorite recruit on here. But what's the future look like under Coach Prime without the big question, Shedeur and Travis?
Yeah, I think at this point, Deion Sanders is staying in Boulder, Colorado. If I had to call it today at the time of recording, which could change in the span of 24 hours, and it's bold, but I really do think that the rhetoric that came out of some smaller journalists in the middle of the season of, hey, I've worked around Deion, he cares about these young men and wants to see them succeed. I don't believe he's an NFL coach. I do think he's going to stay at the college level and keep these guys accountable, build a program of good young men. I'm starting to really buy into that. If I had to predict it today, especially based on things that Deion has said at the podium, I do believe he's going to stick around for a little bit. Now, why? I think that could be the only answer. He doesn't need the money. He doesn't need the exposure. He's Coach Prime, but he's impacting lives. And he talks about that a whole lot when he goes in front of a microphone. So if you are Deion Sanders looking at the future, it's very bright because now not only are you getting blue chip guys out of the transfer portal, you're getting blue chip guys out of the high school ranks as well. It's not hard when Deion or Warren Sapp sits down in your living room and says, hey, that last bozo, that Eli Drinkowitz guy, that nerd, yeah, you can play for him or you can play for me. Look at this chain. Like, I mean, I know who I'm playing for in that conversation. And Eli Drinkowitz is an elite recruiter. But when Deion Sanders is in your living room, that changes the game. As long as Deion's at Colorado, they should be in the top 3, top 5 in a chaotic Big 12. And especially if he's back next year, even without a Travis Hunter or Shedeur Sanders or Shiloh Sanders, Colorado is a threat to win the Big 12 championship, go to the college football playoff, and should be a top 25 team in the preseason because they're the only school boasting multiple 5-star kids.
Yeah, you mentioned so many things there that I'll follow up on. But yeah, he does, man. And Coach Prime created the ego. Like, we get it, right? Like, we get that Coach Prime very much likes it. But all those things aside, he does somewhat, and they're very different personalities, but he does somewhat remind me of that ball signed by him, Bobby Bowden, where it was very important to him to not only win football games and be the greatest, but also to make an impact on kids' lives. And if all he cared about was Travis and Shedeur and Shiloh, whatever, like if all he cared was his kids, he'd already be gone, right? Let's be honest with ourselves here, right? Okay, let's start working on the draft, guys. Y'all ain't playing in the bowl. We're going to the NFL. I'm going with you, And so I agree with that. I do think that there's this rap about like, oh, he's in it for himself or he's just in it for his kids. And man, I just don't think that's the case, especially when you look at, okay, he spent a lot of time working on this recruiting class to just up and leave it, just up and go. And, you think about next year and, man, nobody talked about this. Well, no, people talked about it. They just didn't talk about it enough. Robert Livingston, was that the hire of the offseason in bringing him in? And it was a question, right? Like, he's just a safeties coach or a DB's coach in the NFL. Like, is that really going to work out? That was the hire of the offseason. Like, Colorado's defense going from what it was last year to what it was this year, phenomenal. And so, yeah, you're going to lose Travis Hunter off that. You're going to lose some other guys too on the defensive line and Shiloh. But like, that's what's going to make their defense good for a while, as long as he's there.
Yeah, I love the fact that Colorado has found this formula of, hey, we're going to hire a former NFL legend, and he's going to build a coaching staff of NFL legends, NFL coaches, elite college coaches, and create a culture where every one of those people feels the pressure of winning for sure, but also feels valued by the head coach, Deion Sanders, and a guy that you want to feel valued by. Now, look, TJ, there were those war stories of, this second-string cornerback comes out in Deion's first year and says, yeah, he lined us up, 25 of us down the hallway, and said, you're cut, you're cut, you're cut. If that did happen, you're seeing the benefits of that at Colorado right now. It doesn't mean Deion Sanders is a bad guy. He is a businessman. And in today's world of college football, you need somebody who's got some moxie. You need somebody who can handle the business side of college football, the people side of college football. And Deion is certainly there, especially with these hires he's made of pro-level coaches and coordinators. And I go back to that line of you're cut, you're cut, you're cut. What he was doing was ultimately benefiting the Colorado football program that needed complete overhaul. And it couldn't be, I'm going to sit down and have a long, heartfelt conversation with every one of you. It needed to be, I'm bringing my bags, they're Louis. And while we all made fun of that, he went 9-3 and had the Heisman Trophy winner on his roster this season.
Yeah, I think what people don't realize that maybe are casuals, I'll just say it, right? Whatever. I'm not here to make people feel good. I think people don't realize that every coach does that. They usually just make it a very long, drawn out process of, like you just said, sit down and talk and listen, buddy. We really would love to have a spot for you, but man, we can help you find something new. Where Deion just said, like, hey man, we're going to cut to the chase, right?
Well, like, look, TJ,
I've heard the end of the story.
So many stories of I didn't even talk to the head coach. It was the D coordinator. It was my position coach who brought me in and said we don't have.
Pretty common.
It's relegated to the assistants. The fact that Deion was even in there, and I heard people like, yeah, he was wearing his sunglasses. Of course, he was wearing his sunglasses. What he does. This wasn't a disrespect thing. We've got to get over the initial narratives about Deion being, he does things differently. It doesn't mean it's disrespectful. I've said it before that he's gone too far in this category, that category, but truly he's just being Deion Sanders. He's tried to tell us the whole time, this is just who he is. So he's not having the DC have those conversations. He's looking you through the sunglasses in the eyes and saying, all right, we're moving on. And I don't think it's a bad thing.
Yeah. The fever pitch at the start of last year, the start of 23, died off some, obviously, with losing, and then reached pretty high heights again this year. And then obviously it's going to be pretty entertaining to watch what he is able to do next year, because it will look pretty different. Some things will look the same. What does this position look like? What does that position look like? But like you said, it would surprise me if they're not talked about early as a contender for the Big 12, which again, it starts to turn, right? First year, oh, it's cute. Second year, they're not going to do much. And then third year, man, there's some expectations that go with this. Now we're kind of expecting you to stick around and to be around. And we expect your games in November to mean something again in 2025. And a guy who has never shied away from the prime time, let's be a little punny there, but I am interested to see how things are handled there.
Yeah, man, TJ, this could be, can't imagine how your title's going to look here. From Deion Sanders returns to wins a Big 12 title next year, maybe the biggest prediction that I have for Deion and company, he will land an elite quarterback in this offseason from the transfer portal. He will absolutely do that and build pieces around that kid that we will talk about all offseason long. If Deion stays, and I do believe, I believe confidently he will, there's a big-time quarterback coming to Boulder soon.
I can't wait, man. Drake, where can people follow you? Where can they find your work, buddy?
At Drake C. Toll or at LO Big 12 on Twitter and wherever you find your podcast with Locked On Big 12.
Awesome. Thanks, man.
Always.